Tuesday, everybody. I hope you're having a good day today so far. Something interesting that I found out that I just thought it was kind of cool, I guess. Maybe you heard about it. So, we all know about the Gabby Petito case and how her fiance Brian Laundrie is missing. And I heard that Dog the Bounty Hunter is now on the hunt for Brian Laundrie. And the last thing I read through Fox News was that he gave Brian Laundrie's parents a rude awakening as he joins the search. And let me tell you, I used to be a huge, huge fan of watching Dog the Bounty Hunter. I absolutely enjoyed watching it. I watched it all the time. It was such a great show. Um, and I think my favorite, I had this huge crush on Leland. Absolutely love the show. It's a great show. And I kind of feel like maybe Dog the Bounty Hunter can do a lot more than he's good at his job. I know he's good at his job. And maybe the show kind of, dramatizes it a bit, but I still think he's pretty good at what he does and finding people. So I hope he actually finds him. I'd like to know exactly what happened and what's going on and why he disappeared. And hopefully he didn't run off to go and off himself to escape the consequences of whatever he may allegedly have done to Gabby. But hopefully we'll find out soon. My big question is I just don't understand how like law enforcement and especially the FBI can't find this man, but they were absolutely able to find everybody that was at the Capitol on January 6th and lock them up immediately. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think the FBI is absolutely capable of finding Brian Laundrie. My belief, my theory is the reason why they haven't found him, it's not because they can't. I feel like they're dragging this story out to keep you captivated by it so you're not paying attention to everything else that's going on. That's what I believe they're doing. Maybe they're not, but I wouldn't put it past them. And I think they want us more focused on this case than they want us focused on what they're trying to do, personally. Okay, so today's episode I think is going to be very interesting. First, let's start with our daily promise. It says, Nevertheless, I am continually with thee. Thou hast holden me by my right hand. Thou shalt guide me with thy counsel, and afterward receive me to glory. Psalm chapter 73, verses 23 and 24. And the reflection today is a prayer, and it says, Gracious Father, thank you for continually being present within my life. Thank you for loving me with such unconditional adoration. Make me worthy of your wonderful devotion toward me, that I may give you honor and praise. Cause me to have a passionate desire toward your word, that I may please you in all I do and say. May I desire nothing on this desolate earth but the future glory with you. I like that. I absolutely like that. Sometimes I desperately am asking, like, when can we go home? It's getting worse and worse every day. I'm ready. Even so, Lord, come quickly. Um, a little side note, yesterday's episode, it was only posted as audio only because when I was recording for YouTube, I unplugged the microphone and was trying to play a video so that you could hear it for the audio only episode. And when I plugged it back in, it didn't reconnect the microphone for whatever reason. So I couldn't even use that. So I had to delete the video. Hopefully, nothing happens today and the recording comes out fine. So let's get into today's episode. I want to talk about the jabs and what exactly, specifically the two that are the mRNA jabs. I want to talk about what those are. So if you look here at phys.org, it says what you should know about the key ingredient in some of the vaccines. And then we also have an article about the differences between the mRNA and traditional ones. And we have an article from the inventor, we have an article about a whistleblower, and we have a full list of what exactly is in them. So we're going to first take a look at the differences between them. And this is from menshealth.com. This is written by Rosalind S. Frazier. Okay, so when the I'm just gonna read it, and if YouTube kicks it down and shuts it off, fine. When the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines rolled out with the mRNA technology, everyone wondered exactly what that meant. Now, other jabs are on the horizon in the US. Some are already authorized for use in other countries, with different and sometimes more traditional technologies behind them. The bottom line is this: each type of jab that's been developed or is being developed, mRNA, vector, and protein subunit, has its own way of doing things, but they all have one thing in common. Each jab works by stimulating an antibody mediated immune response to attack the virus that causes the rona. And this is from J.W. Lee, MD, MPH, a practicing family physician in Orange County, California. So all of the jabs you get to the same place. They prime your immune system to protect you from the virus, but exactly how does each work? Here's a snapshot. So, Pfizer and Moderna. So the mRNA or messenger RNA may be labeled as the newest jab in town, which is true, but as we have previously reported, the technology surrounding it is not entirely unknown, as mRNA research has been in the works since the 90s. This type of jab injects instructions via a piece of genetic code that tell your body how to make a certain protein essential to blocking the virus. The mRNA jab instructs our cells to recognize the virus and produce a harmless spike protein, explains Dr. Lee. These proteins train your immune system to recognize the virus and make antibodies to attack that virus if it arrives in your body. The instructions quickly vanish, but your immune system stays fortified. Now, vector jabs. So this is in the Johnson and the J&J and the AstraZeneca, which are not available in the US. So, vector jabs are made from a modified version of a live virus, says Dr. Lee. Those harmless viruses, in this case, an adenovirus, which is a version of the common cold, are sent into your body containing an instruction manual that tells your cells to make a spike protein. A harmless piece of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, that's the one that causes the rona. Vector jabs will not give you the rona. Your body starts to make antibodies to this so that if a real spike protein comes around on the rona causing virus, the antibodies will attack it and ultimately help defend your body. If you've had an MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella, or chickenpox jab, these work in a similar manner. Protein subunit jabs. This is the Novavax, but it's still in clinical trials. So this is what's currently used in the hepatitis V and one of the shingles jabs. Protein subunit jabs are a little bit like vector jabs, but instead of using a different virus to send in the genetic message, these contain harmless pieces of the virus that causes the rona, but not the entire virus. Once these parts or subunits, which can be things like the germ's protein, sugar, or a casing around the germ known as a capsid, get into the body, our immune system recognizes that they are foreign, promotes the making of antibodies, which in turn fights the virus. So, what kind of jab is the flu jab? Since we are in the midst of the flu season, it peaks this month but will last until May. Now, this was written in February of this year. You may also be wondering where the flu jab falls in all this. The shot version, there's also a nasal spray, uses an inactivated virus or single protein from the flu virus and essentially does the same thing as the Rona jabs mentioned above. It introduces your body to parts of a different flu viruses. This puts your immune system on the defensive to help rid your body of this foreign substance. Antibodies are made and then offer protection down the line. The tricky thing about flu jabs' effectiveness is that it is going to vary from season to season because there are different types or the virus that circulate each year. So medical experts never know exactly which will hit us and often are making highly educated guesstimations. The most important takeaway from all this: protection against the Rona is key. All these types of jabs are just different routes to get your body to protect you. So that's that. That's what it is, right? Great. Okay. So now let's take a look at the phys.org article about what you should know about the key ingredients. So this was written by Penny Riggs. One surprising star of the virus pandemic response has been the molecule called mRNA. It's the key ingredient in the Pfizer and Moderna jabs, but mRNA itself is not a new invention from the lab. It evolved billions of years ago, doubtful, and is naturally found in every cell in your body. Scientists think RNA originated in the earliest life forms even before DNA existed. No, that's not how it worked. If it's in your body, it was put there by God and it was always there. Here's a crash course in just what mRNA is and the important job it does. So, you probably know about DNA. It's the molecule that contains all your genes spelled out in four-letter code, A, C, G, and T. DNA is found inside the cells of every living thing. It's protected in a part of the cell called the nucleus. The genes are the details in the DNA blueprint for all the physical characteristics that make you uniquely you. But the information from your genes has to get from the DNA in the nucleus out to the main part of the cell, the cytoplasm, where proteins are assembled. Cells rely on proteins to carry out the many processes necessary for the body to function. That's where messenger RNA, or mRNA for short, comes in. Sections of the DNA code are transcribed into shortened messages that are instructions for making proteins. These messages, the mRNA, are transported out to the main part of the cell. Once the mRNA arrives, the cell can produce particular proteins from these instructions. The structure of RNA is similar to DNA but has some important differences. RNA is a single strand of code letters or nucleotides, while DNA is a double-stranded. The RNA code contains a U instead of a T, uracil instead of thymine. Both RNA and DNA structures have a backbone made of sugar and phosphate molecules, but RNA's sugar is ribose and DNA's is deoxyribose. DNA sugar contains one less oxygen atom, and this difference is reflected in their names. DNA is the nickname for deoxyribonucleic acid, and RNA is ribonucleic acid. Identical copies of DNA reside in every single cell of an organism, from a lung cell to a muscle cell to a neuron. RNA is produced as needed in response to the dynamic cellular environment and the immediate needs of the body. It's mRNA's job to help fire up the cellular machinery to build the proteins as encoded by the DNA that are appropriate for that time and place. The process that converts DNA to mRNA to protein is the foundation for how the cell functions. As the intermediary messenger, mRNA is an important safety mechanism in the cell. It prevents invaders from hijacking the cellular machinery to produce foreign proteins because any RNA outside of the cell is instantaneously targeted for destruction by enzymes called RNases. When these enzymes recognize the structure and the U in the RNA code, they erase the message, protecting the cell from false instructions. The mRNA also gives the cell a way to control the rate of protein production, turning the blueprints on or off as needed. No cell wants to produce every protein described in your whole genome all at once. Messenger RNA instructions are timed to self-destruct like a disappearing text or Snapchat message. Structural features of the mRNA, the U in the code, its single-stranded shape, ribose sugar, and its specific sequence, ensure that the mRNA has a short half-life. These features combine to enable the message to be read, translated into proteins, and then quickly destroyed within minutes for certain proteins that need to be tightly controlled or up to a few hours for others. Once the instructions vanish, protein production stops until the protein factories receive a new message. So all of mRNA's characteristics made it a great interest to jab developers. The goal of the jab is to get your immune system to react to a harmless version or part of a germ, so when you encounter the real thing, you're ready to fight it off. Researchers found a way to introduce and protect an mRNA message with the code for a portion of the spike protein on the SARS-CoV-2 virus's surface. The vaccine, let me restart that. The jab provides just enough mRNA to make just enough of the spike protein for a person's immune system to generate antibodies that protect them if they are later exposed to the virus. The mRNA in the jab is soon destroyed by the cell, just as any other mRNA would be. The mRNA cannot get into the cell nucleus, and it cannot affect a person's DNA. Although these are new jabs, the underlying technology was initially developed many years ago and improved incrementally over time. As a result, the jabs have been well tested for safety. Okay. The successes of this mRNA jab against the rona in terms of safety and efficacy predicts a bright future for new jab therapies that can quickly be tailored to new emerging threats. Early stage clinical trials using mRNA jabs have already been conducted for influenza, Zika, rabies, and cytomegalovirus. Certainly, creative scientists are already considering and developing therapies for other diseases or disorders that might benefit from an approach similar to that used for jabs against rona. Okay, now we kind of know what mRNA is, what it does, how it relates to DNA. Now let's take a look at the full list of what is in the jabs, right? Many people are curious to know what the ingredients as for the 3 currently available Rona jabs in the US. Here's a breakdown of the 3 jabs and their ingredients. So, Pfizer. You have mRNA, lipids, whatever 4-hydroxybutyl azanadyl bis hexane 6-1. Okay, I don't know what these are, but it has to do with the lipids. Okay, it's different lipids. Okay, and then there's also ditetradicylectamide. Okay, dysteryl synglycero, phosphocholine and cholesterol, potassium chloride, monobasic potassium phosphate, sodium chloride, dibasic sodium phosphate, dihydrate, and sucrose. It does not contain eggs, preservatives, or latex. Now, Moderna, it is messenger, so it has mRNA, it has different lipids, right? Which is some of the same ones. You have cholesterol, you have the phosphocholine, you have tromethyamine hydrochloride, acetic acid, sodium acetate trihydrate, and sucrose, and it does not contain eggs, preservatives, or latex. Your J&J has recombinant, replication incompetent adenovirus type 26 expressing the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, citric acid, monohydrate, trisodium citrate dihydrate, ethanol, 2-hydroxypropyl, cyclodextrin or HBCD, polysorbate 80 sodium chloride, and it also does not contain eggs, preservatives, or latex, but it does have supposedly aborted fetus parts. That's what I've been told. Now, the inventor of the mRNA jab warned against the Rona shot, okay? So, Dr. Robert Malone, this is from, I can't say it, vaccinefreedom.wordpress.com. Hopefully, YouTube doesn't catch that. So, Dr. Robert Malone invented the mRNA technology, which has been used to create the Pfizer and Moderna Rona jabs. He's been speaking out about the dangers of the jabs, such as the damages the virus spike protein causes in the body. In this interview with Del Bigtree, Dr. Robert Malone calls for a stop of the jabs. He explains that the jabs can cause enhanced immune response, which creates a worse reaction when exposed to the natural virus. He says that it can create autoimmunities in the body. Dr. Robert Malone also said that the spike protein is the most dangerous part of the virus, which is in the jab, is similar to spike proteins in our bodies and can open up, not just pass through, the blood-brain barrier. This has very dangerous implications for the human body and why there have been so many adverse reactions to the jab. And there's a link to watch the full interview. I wish we could have a full transcript of it. I'll watch the video, and on Thursday I'll tell you what the interview was about if y'all want me to. I was looking at some of the comments, and there was a question. It says, if you've taken it, how do you get rid of the mRNA spike protein? Can you transfer the mRNA spike protein to others? And there's an answer, and I don't know. It has a link to something, but it says, Andy Wakefield has said that once a jab is in your system, it's always there. However, there are ways to detox from them, but it's not a guarantee that it'll work for everyone. With the Rona jab being so new, there really isn't much information about effective ways to detox from it. But there is a link to a website with some detox recommendations if you've had the jab. She says that super herbs help to disable the spike protein. Remember that territory is pretty much unknown and everybody is unique. That is why some people will have reactions while others do not. they do not endorse or support a specific detox protocol. And in response to your question about the spike protein being transferred to others, here's a link to an interview with Dr. Roger Hodgkinson. In this interview, he talks about how those who have been jabbed can shed the virus. He says that the spike protein gets into the sweat glands and then released as a person sweats. The sweat then aerosolizes and anyone nearby can breathe it in. Sweat aerosolizes. That is how we are able to smell body odor. And there's a link to that. And what's funny is there was actually just a story about a teacher at a Christian school who got the jab, and one of the children, she that was her teacher, and she was around her, and then all of a sudden, like, I want to say, like, she was late for her menstrual cycle, and then when her menstrual cycle started, it was super, super heavy and she was clotting really bad. And allegedly, it was believed that that was from her teacher shedding and causing that reaction on her because she didn't have the jab. And I've heard that you can do that, that they can shed it onto other people that have not had it. So it's kind of odd. I mean, I'm around people all the time who have gotten it and I'm perfectly fine, so I don't know. There was another question that says, I found this board and I find it really useful and it helped me out a lot. I'm hoping to provide something back and help others such as you aided me. But there's links to different things that we could look at. But the big thing I wanted to look at is the whistleblower from Mothman777's blog. Big Pharma whistleblower reveals the dangers of the mRNA jab. So it's a video. There's a link to it. It's 17 minutes and 28 seconds. But I'm going to read you this. It says, a most interesting and revealing video, genuinely worth your time watching it. One of the issues raised by Alex Jones and the whistleblower jab company worker who rings in is regarding the increasing problems people are likely to face over the next 10 years after taking these mRNA jabs when eating certain foods, which will also trigger certain autoimmune issues, which we can even see occurring already in some people already suffering allergic reactions to certain foods as a result of taking certain antigens in the standard type of allopathic jabs over the past years. But of course, every time we eat GM soya and bread already, or any other damaging food like eggs of chickens that have been fed on GM feed, or milk of goats or cows that have been fed on GM soya, we are already being surreptitiously dosed with non-compatible mRNA that still resides in their produce that can cause illnesses in us. That is the true that this is true can be demonstrated by the fact that when dairy cows are fed GMO feed, the dairy cows that are normally healthy at that age start to die at the rate of 1 in 10 every year, when previously no cows in that age group died at all, and they lose more calves that are born stillborn or deformed. Their fertility goes down. They end up producing 15% less viable offspring, and in the case of goats fed GM feed, their veterinary bills go up 50% and their offspring are born progressively smaller. But the GM soya to feed these livestock cost even more to provide the non-GM soya, yet the criminal governments in cahoots with the big GM feed providers make it so that the farmers can almost always only buy GM soya now, as 98% of all soya grown in the U.S. now is GM soya, per evil beyond words. Bottom line, the massively increasing rates of kidney and liver diseases, autoimmune diseases, and cancer in human beings and livestock are largely coming from that cause already, and it is going to get worse. This is a war against all life on this planet, and those being responsible are upping the pace now. This is not about eugenics. This is not about population reduction to save resources and save the planet. Everything they are doing is permanently destroying or damaging the ecosystems and damaging the genomes of all forms of life native to this planet, just as if they are simply boiling crawfish and getting ready to take the shells off to eat us all. It is all about total extermination by the planetary invaders who are now upping the pace. It is just like the highly perceptive Adolf Hitler said in Mein Kampf, that if the Jews succeed, there will be nothing left but a lifeless ball of rock spinning through space. And of course, when the Jews have sucked all the life force drive from this planet, they will simply up sticks and transmigrate physically yet again to reincarnate on some other unfortunate planet full of unsuspecting victims to repeat their mindlessly selfish and sadistic criminal parasitic behavior there. I don't know much about that. I've never read Mein Kampf, but I know he hated them for a reason. It wasn't a good reason, but apparently this is why he had a problem with the Jews. But this would also, his attack on the Jews would also be why he's burning in hell to this day. So, such jabs already contain a wide variety of antigens that then cause sensitivity to those ingredients when they are consumed in foods later on. For instance, the life threatening anaphylaxis, commonly assumed to be just a naturally occurring allergy, when in fact, peanut allergen placed in jabs has conditioned a massive reaction to peanuts in some individuals, resulting in a reaction that can cause them to literally choke to death. Obviously, those at the top are starting to see more and more potential for those beneath them to counter them and their plans in some way, so they are doing their malicious best to hobble us right now to make us so weak and diseased that we will have to spend greatly increasing amounts of our time, energy, and resources trying to lick our own wounds and to be too weak and preoccupied to be capable of much else. And of course, the money spent on the massively increasing number of autoimmune diseases will more rapidly fill the coffers of the big Jewish pharmaceutical companies as they slowly sterilize and murder us, a win-win situation for them. I will say one thing I have noticed is behind a lot of the elitists, you have a lot of people that are of Jewish descent, like George Soros being the biggest one. So it does kind of make you question their motives. Just today, I received a telephone call from my GP doctor urging me to get the Rona jab after an earlier printed letter delivered to me offering me an appointment to get the jab was not responded to by me. How kind and concerned they are all of a sudden after years of callous neglect and sometimes gravely injurious harm. When if I ever ask them for any help with any problems or illnesses that I am really facing with my physical health, I usually get completely blanked off and stonewalled for literally years or very badly hurt by some calculatedly harmful hospital procedure or other, as many, but not all NHS doctors are often pathological liars and maliciously sadistic, like the most cruel prison officers. Of course, many GPs do visit prisons to work there as part of their allocated duties, so quickly pick up certain traits when working there, and then come to treat everyone with the gravest suspicion like they are all likely criminals who deserve the utmost contempt. Years ago, I knew a leading homeopathic doctor from Poland who provided me with a similar account that years ago in Poland, there had been a major mainstream media drive on television and in the newspapers to get everyone in Poland to get jabbed for some epidemic disease, and then the same politician who had been leading this program to encourage everyone to come forward to receive an allopathic jab surprisingly contacted this homeopathic doctor. When the politician visited this homeopath, the homeopath was very surprised with what he said. As the politician requested to receive homeopathic jab himself, and that Polish homeopath told me he had asked the politician why he was asking to receive homeopathic jabs when that politician was the very same person who had been appearing on the television who had been telling everyone else to get the allopathic jabs through the Polish government health services. The doctor then told me that the Polish politician told him that himself, as well as all other politicians and their families in the entire Polish government, had been ordered from higher up not to take the jab. Regarding what Alex Jones said in the video about this type of thing occurring, here is a Time magazine report I found detailing a similar issue. In Germany, a better jab for politicians, and I've always thought this that our leaders are not actually getting these Rona jabs. I actually don't believe they are. So this article from Time, this was back in 2009, and it looks like it has to do with H1N1. So critics are calling it a two-tier health system, one for the politically well-connected, another for the hoi polloi. I don't know what that means. As Germany launched its mass jab program against the H1N1 flu virus on Monday, the government found itself fending off accusations of favoritism because it was offering one jab believed to have fewer side effects to civil servants, politicians, and soldiers, and another potentially riskier jab to everyone else. The government had hoped that Germans would rush to health clinics to receive jabs against the rapidly spreading disease, but now rising anger over the different drugs may cause many people to shy away. Amid growing fears of a possible global flu pandemic, the German government prepared for its mass jab campaign earlier this year by ordering 50 million doses of the pandem, Pandemrix jab, enough for a double dose for 25 million people, about a third of the population. The jab, manufactured by GlaxoSmithKline, contains an immunity-enhancing chemical compound known as an adjuvant, whose side effects are not yet entirely known. Then, after a report was leaked to the German media last week, the Interior Ministry confirmed that it had ordered a different jab, um, Calvapan for government officials and the military. Calvapan, which is made by U.S. pharmaceutical giant Baxter, does not contain an adjuvant and is believed to have fewer side effects than Pandemrix. So, anger at the news was widespread in Germany. If mass jabs is considered to be necessary, then everyone should be treated the same way, says Bridget Bender, health spokeswoman for the Green Party. Ulrich, uh, Ulrich Mascher, head of the VDK Social Welfare Association, says giving government officials a jab that's different from that given to the rest of the population sent the wrong signal and gives many people the impression that they are second-class patients. A story on the front page of the mass circulation Bild newspaper accused the government of giving second-class medicine to regular Germans. Doctors and medical experts are divided over the safety of Pandemrix. While some say it's the best jab available, others have serious misgivings about it. The Pandemrix jab can't be recommended for pregnant women or young children because it has an increased risk of side effects. Pandemrix has an adjuvant which hasn't been tested sufficiently up until now. Alexander Kekule, a virologist at the University of Halle, tells Time. Calvapan is a whole virus jab, which has fewer side effects than Pandemrix, but it leads more often to fever or local swelling when compared with the normal seasonal flu jab. He adds, although Kekule calls the government's handling of the jab program a scandal, he says government officials and soldiers are not necessarily getting a better deal with Calvapan. Neither Calvapan nor Pandemrix are ideal, he says. The Interior Ministry hit back at suggestions for a preferential treatment, saying it had ordered about 200 doses of the Calvapan jab from Baxter before the differences between the two jabs were documented, and the government was bound by the terms of its contract. The government also points out that both Pandemrix and Calvapan have been approved by the European Union, and that other countries, such as Britain and Sweden, are using the Pandemrix jab. In an attempt to put a lid on the simmering controversy, Chancellor Angela Merkel's spokeswoman, Ulrich Wilhelm, said the German leader would consult with her doctor in the next few days, and if she decided to receive a jab, it would be Pandemrix. At least 26,000 people have been infected with the swine flu in Germany, resulting in 3 deaths. Although the majority of patients have experienced only mild flu-like symptoms, a steady increase in the number of cases of H1N1 in recent months has raised alarm across the nation. In its latest report, the Robert Koch Institute, the Federal Agency for Infectious Diseases, said new cases in Germany have jumped to about 1,600 each week, double the 700 to 800 weekly cases reported in early autumn. With the onset of winter, when seasonal flu infections typically peak, many experts are concerned that H1N1 infections will spike dramatically. Klaus Osterreiter, a virologist at the Free University of Berlin, now fears that with the worries over the possible risk associated with the Pandemrix, many people will avoid getting a jab altogether. According to a survey conducted on October 23rd by Mnet Institute, only 13% of Germans said they wanted to receive a swine flu jab this winter. The public debate is bad because it raises questions about the whole jab program. If the government doesn't find a way to find some way to remedy the current public relations disaster and clear up the confusion over the different swine flu jabs, it could be faced with an even greater emergency, especially if the country's hospital wards start overflowing with the flu patients in the coming months. Um, yeah, it's pretty interesting to be honest. Um, let's pull up this about I guess his name is David Dicke.com. He's the whistleblower that was revealing the dangers. It's on InfoWars. I don't know how you would be able to get a hold of it, honestly. Um, I don't know. But I will put the link to the video of the inventor of the mRNA jabs that wants to put a stop to getting them for the Rona. Um, it's an hour and 40 minutes long. So what I intend to do is I'm going to watch it myself, and then I'm going to give a summary of the whole video on my Thursday episode. So if you don't have time to watch it, then you can just listen to a summary of it. But I really, really think we need to start looking at what the mRNA actually does, and I'm going to do some more research on it. This was just kind of an idea of the differences between the different types of jabs and what exactly are in them, what they do, and to let you know that there are people, even the inventor of it, thinks it's a bad idea to be getting them for the Rona. And I think that's some very important information that people need to know before they decide to go out and get it, honestly. So that's why I wanted to share this episode today. Anyway, I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something new. Don't forget, go join me on my Facebook, Lauren Collins. I just got to say something. My Instagram, got to say something 21. You can email me, got to say something 21 at gmail.com. If you're on audio only, please go to Anchor, Spotify, Google, Apple, subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and share this video. This absolutely needs to be shared as much as possible. You can leave me a comment and I'll get back to you. Anything you want to say, you want to know, whatever it is. And also, the best thing that you can do for me is just subscribe to the channel, show me your support, hit the notification bell so you know every time I upload a new video. Don't forget, you can still buy t-shirts, sign the petition to protect women in prisons, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. God bless.